Hey everybody. So, I have for you Paleo. This game looked really interesting. I've seen it on the shelf for about a year now, and I was like, oh, it's a weird team building survival thing, so I figured I'd check it out. So, as usual, took the plastic wrap off. So, I thought it was really neat, mainly because it had this stand thing you built, and I was like, oh, you discover technology. That's kind of neat. And you're surviving a tribe. And then one of the weird things I saw was your goal is to basically leave a mark on history, which I guess is completing a cave painting. But the game looked kind of neat. I figure I'd try it. I really like survival and team games, especially games that are really co op because it's good for team building. I know there's this rule supplement part, a little campaign thing, I believe. Yeah, there's the modules for the campaign. So we got our standard punch board, which I'm not. Oh, there's inserts in here too. That's kind of neat. Oh no, this is the. I think this is that stand. Got some decks in here. What is this? Do not read rules before looking card. That are not used in game. Okay. Different colors that I'm not exactly sure what they mean. Huh. Cool. See, these are really nice when games do this. You don't have to have a super nice tray, but like just this basic simple cardboard tray is really nice. And it has illustrations for organizations, so that's all good. More companies need to do this. I'm not asking for an expensive insert, but something similar and at least have the packaging fit the box, and this is very well thought out. So I'm going to give this a try with my play group and do a quick review because there's really not much to what's in the box, but so far it's really cool that they give you, you know, wooden pieces, huge plus instead of majority cardboard, wooden dice, that's kind of neat. I didn't expect that. I was expecting your generic uh, D6. These are nice and rounded, and yeah, that's pretty cool. And of course, your bag of supposedly baggies for whatever. So far, that's cool. So I guess these are inserts for this. I'm not exactly sure. Kind of feels like I'm busting it, but does it fit? Yes, it does fit. All right. See, that's cool. Small little things like this are great quality of life improvements that make a product stand out, and I like this. It's not super fancy, it's not super special, but it's considerate, and I don't know if that's also why this game's kind of expensive, since I think I spent like $70 on this. But so far, everything looks pretty cool. Let's see how the tokens. Standard cardboard thickness, not bad. Material's pretty good. Manual's pretty good feeling. There's that woolly mammoth cave mark thing. So I think these are like errors where you put your cards in the boards. But anyways, I'm gonna put this together and do a quick playthrough and see how it goes. So I will catch you guys in a bit. So the basic mechanic of Paleo is this: we have our tribe here, and they can join another player's tribe to help them with a day mission. So this is your day deck, and it gets divided up equally amongst players. And to start your day, you're going to draw the top 3 cards. You're not going to look at them. You're just going to draw them, look at the backs. Now, I don't like the fact that it says draw top 3, and I guess you could just draw 2. But if you pick that, you'd still know, so I'm not exactly sure if that really matters. But this knowledge here is pretty important. So because we kind of know what we need, so let's say we're going to go, we need wood. We know there's wood in the forest. We know there's meat and leather in the river, and there's rocks and maybe meat. But the forest is usually meat and wood. So we'll pick that, and we'll put the other 2 back on top in any order we choose. So here we have a dodo. So I have 2 spears, which is strength, and the requirement. So what happens for this cost is I'm going to, if I do attack the dodo, I'm going to gain 2 meat. So I'm going to do that. We kill the dodo, it gets removed from game. We gain 2 meat from killing Dodo, and I have to discard the top 2 cards to the discard spot on the board. Now I know that the next repetitive cycle for the day phase, and it's going to go until we run out of this deck, I'm stuck with a Treachery, and Camp Action, and a Mountain. So I know for a fact that, and this is where knowledge is really important to the game too. These usually have a 2-card discard on everything. That Treachery, if it gets discarded, I have to do it. So I'm going to be safe here and pick the Camp Action. And here I could build something, or I have less people. I'm going to recruit. So I'm going to add another human. And here I have a hunter now. So now I got to worry about 3 food just to feed my guys for the night. And this card goes into the discard pile face up. Pretty simple. And then we continue doing this until the deck runs out. Now, you do not have to actually go through the whole deck. There are times that I have ran into three on the top pile, and I'm just like, no, I'm done. So by doing that, you end your day phase, and you wait till everyone else is done going through their decks, or they decide to end their day. And then you go to the night phase and pay all the costs. So this is the night board for Paleo. Here we have secret objectives, or missions, I guess, that are actually linked to cards. So when you draw a card with the number 1, you're going to flip this over and reveal it. And you're going to have the option of doing what you want. So for number 1 here, we got these humans that will join us. And for number 2, we have a stampede. And that's kind of a penalty right there. And that's actually linked to another card in the B deck that is, if you kill a baby elephant or a baby mammoth, their parents are going to be really mad. Down here we have the end of night goals and the penalties associated. We have to do one or the other. So at the end, we have here for the first part on Bountiful Prey, we got to pay 3 meat and a leather, or we have to add a skull token. And once we hit 5 skull tokens, we die. Same here, but this requires that we have a tent in a new world. And this is at the end of every night. So the game keeps on going until you either finish this mammoth mural or you reveal 5 skulls. Luckily, if you finish the mammoth mural before your 5th skull, or before you actually add the 5th skull, you still win. So it's kind of nice. And the board's fairly detailed on things to remember here, like 1 food per survivor, or human that you have in the party, or you get a skull token. So it's pretty good on details. So for that part, I actually think that's nice that they're good reminders. This is your camp board. It is a fixed number of cards. And it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I say 1, it is... So your starting deck to build is going to be this deck. And in the upper left corner, you can see the number 1. Humans are all number 2. And the neat thing about humans are when they come in, you get whatever equipment they have. This guy has a leather. They're going to have that. And that's his health before he dies. So he's going to take a wound. If he takes another wound, he dies, and you get a skull. Humans, when they get killed, they will go to the elephant graveyard and be trashed. Here we have dreams, and they're conveniently numbered 3 in the corner. These cards get added to the main deck, which is really nice. It's a way to extend your days and your camp ability time. And then here we have your technology or tools. So what happens when these get revealed? They are going to end up added to this tableau system here. And you're going to put them in their slot. Now, if they have tokens, like this is a pit trap, you add the tokens to this little section here, which it's kind of nice. But I've seen that majority of these technology tokens, there's only about 3 tokens. And then it's just a nice display that everyone can see. So to craft a trap, it's going to require a meat and some wood. And you get this equipment token that you can use during questing. Really handy, but there's not a lot of these cards. As you can see, so this is number 4, and I believe there's 8 of these. Let's just double check real quick. Yeah. So there's 8 of these cards. There are scenarios that will add equipment cards, like this tent here is added from the B set. And you start with this in play, so And of course, it shows you this nice little thing about put it where it goes. So far I haven't run into a problem. Every slot, 2 of the items in this will be consumed on use and go to the trash pile when you've actually completed them. So I really haven't had an issue of running out of space. So one of the neat features again about the camp board, you will see that the backs of the cards actually are, they kind of give you what the location is going to give you if you go and do the job, but that's not always the case. So we have the camp card right here. So that allows us to either get a human, get a dream, or a tool, or build. But sometimes not so. In this case, it allows us, and it does exactly what it says. We can construct one item from the tool tableau. We can recruit humans. If you have 1 to 2, you get 1 for free. Just remember that you will have to pay extra food during the night phase or they'll starve. And if you have 3 or more, you gotta pay food. And then this bottom is if you want to actually help someone else do their job and not do your job. So there's a lot of teamwork in this game. And the metaphor is, I really like it because it's a good way to actually get people to talk and communicate. There are problems with this type of game design where you're going to run into quarterbacking. And that's always a problem in a board game group. So this requires a lot of communication and a lot of future planning. Some of it is going to be terrible, and some of it's going to be random. So here we have a treachery card. When one of these cards is discarded as a cost or drawn, if it's drawn, at least if someone draws a card with a help symbol, they can help you with the treachery. So in this case, if I didn't have enough perception here, I couldn't do this job and I'd have to take 2 wounds, or if I had a torch at least. But because if I discarded as a cost, let's say this card here, discard 2, when this gets discarded, I have to reveal it and do it, and therefore no one can help me because it's a different phase now with the cost, and I'm stuck fighting this wolf. And if I didn't have the stuff, I'd take 2 wounds, which more likely kill a human. Some of these locations actually are marked with special symbols, like this is a river, but it has a mammoth on it. So this is kind of a hint for you to figure out what you're going to do. If you're starving and you want food real bad, maybe we should dump the resources in drawing and try to do this. One of the cool things about these cards also is, so far that I've seen, they're going to give you one of the pieces to the picture to complete. So these are really important to get done, and they're going to help you kind of beat the timer. But also, they have high costs. So if you're not ready, I don't advise taking it on. Like this camp tent. So as one of the missions said earlier, a new world, we need a tent every night or we're going to die. So on this, if we can pull it off, which again, 4 spears and a torch, discard 2 cards, banish this card, but we get 2 meat, we get a picture paste, but we get a tent and a leather. Really hard to pull off, but they're really worth it because it saves you a lot in action economy. Because you're going to have to build a tent, so getting a tent free for doing a quest saves you a lot of time. And these, as you can see in the corner, this is from the B set and this is from the A set. So those goes towards certain scenarios. So here's a really good example of a card. This is a mountain card. Supposedly it's going to give us rock or leather. Supposedly, according to our little display up here. But in this case, when we flip it over and reveal it, it's a hazard. Abandoned cave. So if we have a torch, we get to remove this card. Great. And then we discover some tech. If not, we take a damage. And it stays. So it just comes back eventually later when we start recycling. Here. So here are the humans. And they all come in with some different abilities. Some don't have any abilities depending on what they do. Some have the bonus extra health. But there's 20 of them in all. And it's a fairly good spread. There we are. So there's a guy that's just a tank. He just tanks damage. He adds no skill value, but you can keep on beating him up to save the rest. And the way damage is assigned, it's all or none. So you can't split damage in your party. Let's say it's 2 damage. You can't split it between the hunter and this crafter. It all has to go on 1. And in this case, it'd be better to dump it on the crafter because you don't want the hunter dying and then getting a skull. So this is a dream deck. Really neat deck. So we have things that, like this event with the Traveler. Discard a card, get a human. Cool. So that's burned. But then we have other cards like food gets added. As you can see slowly, food dwindles every round if you're actually collecting food. So there's another one. Here's some medicine root, which is really good for actually removing damage on characters. Bison. Here's a card. Visions. So this card allows you to look at the fronts of 3 cards in your deck, and the fronts are technically the back. And then place them anywhere in the deck. This actually works really well with the combos with cards that have that backing that signify, like, hey, we're going to have to plan to get a 10 out or we're going to get screwed, so how are we going to do this? So this actually allows you to manipulate the stack. And by doing so, you can actually plot. And these cards are really powerful because they don't get trashed. They just constantly come back. And it's a good way to extend your day phase because the more cards, the more options. So crafting items is kind of required in this game, and it's super critical that you do it. It's just the economy of it. So certain things, like we have this torch here, it costs some wood to make, and with this arrow, it's a one-time use to give you that bonus. But here, we have just one rock, it gives you this axe head. This actually gives us a skill permanently. So these are really helpful, and there's really no limit, but these do belong to the player who crafted them. They don't go in a communal pool. So the spear is really nice, but as you can see, it's very costly. It costs 1 wood and 1 rock. So items with the arrow are expended when used. Certain items like this tent that's scenario based, it has no other purpose except for the scenario. So this is our discard board pretty much. I know that it will add, certain cards will go down here in these 4 slots depending on what scenario or what variants are added to the game. So this is your discard down pile, and the other, as you can see the icon here, very convenient, the other is your face up. As noted, there's the text box and the line. Pretty interesting mechanic that when you discard cards, they're going face down, so you don't really know what it is. But cards you play will be face up. And then some cards will exile themselves, and they will go to this convenient little elephant graveyard to remind you. So, for example, we have this wild boar, and this seems to be pretty common with most of the animals. Once you meet the objective of having 3 spears, you must discard 2 cards, and then you must trash this card or exile it. Your reward is going to be 3 meat, or 3 meat and a leather. So, once it goes to the trash pile, it's not coming back. So, over time, you're getting dwindling resources. So, it's kind of a timer in the game. There are ways to add cards to this deck, and they're mainly by... So, what do I think of Paleo? I like the game. It's still a co-op game, and there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of core backing, but there's a lot of planning involved. And I think it's actually a easier game for co-op than, let's say, Eldritch Horror, or Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, or 2nd Edition. Games like this are kind of watered down, as one of my friends would say, this is like a normie game. I don't think it falls under too difficult. The concept is fairly simple. It's the group dynamics that come into play. And this is one of those games, if you do a pickup group, it's a good way to figure out who's what kind of player. If you have a very controlling, competitive, alpha male mentality, this game's probably not going to be fun, but usually games aren't fun with those types of people. I think this is also a good way to introduce people into understanding communication and not working against each other, but working for the benefit of the greater good. It's simplistic in that, but I think it's one of those things that a lot of people miss out on in life, because honestly, we're focused a lot on, like, we gotta win. But this is a game that has a compromise of kind of like a Sophie's Choice. But in the end, the group should agree and work together and not fight and bicker. It also teaches not to harbor any type of resentment. Just because you might think that you're getting something better, you have to decide, is it better for you or better for the group? Because at the end of the day, it's the group surviving and winning that actually wins the game. You can sit here with all the tools, weapons, spears, and just be like, yeah, you can also burn all the environment down. You can kill all the animals just to starve next season because you're not being responsible. So there's a lot of planning, a lot of teamwork, and a lot of talking. Tempers can flare in games like this, and that's where, either learn to behave and act like civilized people, unlike Neanderthals here, or you just fail consistently, like beating your head against a rock. No, I think Paleo is a very, very good game. I do think it's in the low complexity level. This claimed it was in the mediocre. And I think that's just because you have to understand the card system and the odds of drawing. But I don't think the math is that high. I've only played the first scenario, and yeah, that was a huge learning curve because there were some of the rules that we missed in the rule book and some I forgot. So the first time we did it, we didn't do any of the treacheries, so that was super easy. Then we learned about the treacheries, and I was like, oh. And then it got harder because we weren't focusing enough on what we needed to get done. We were too busy trying to help back and forth without realizing what we needed to get done as a priority and the cost. The first 2 night phases, it's not that bad because you don't have a lot of people and you can kind of get through and no one's really hurt and you're safe. But then the game starts ramping up because the more cards you dump into the permanent remove pile, the more likely bad things are going to happen. And it just hurts everyone. When one person in the tribe dies, it's literally a fifth of your chances of winning gone. So is it worth it? Yes or no. There's also the factor of like splitting damage. So do you want one person to take the treacheries and have almost all their people die? They're down to one guy. They can't really help you. So you have to share the medicine and help each other out. So there's a lot of team play here. And I think in that aspect, this is a really good game. It does it very well. So some caveats. I don't think this is necessary. I mean, I'm glad they put it there because they could, but it doesn't really fit in the box. And you have to take it apart. I mean, it's fine, but over time it will crease and break. So, the item rack, I think, is a little gimmicky. Friend likes it because it's a nice way to display everything for everyone to see. It's a quick reference for the tokens. I just don't see it holding up. I am glad they put space in the box for this in the packaging, and I'm really glad the way they did it. I do wish they did have like a better token tray system so you can organize everything, but that's why they gave the plastic baggies, and I'm just not a fan of that. But I do think the game's very well thought out, very well designed. The coloring, we have this board here. I like the easy reference marks. So this is all really handy stuff. Setup didn't take too long with the game. These modular sets are really cool, just because it adds a lot of variety. I also forgot to mention, so the back of these cards, these moon cards, these are your end of night objectives that you have to meet. So this is pretty much your difficulty also. In the book, there are modules that explain. So we have this rule supplement. So as you can see, it tells you the recommended scenario setup. Module scenario 1 is module A and B, 2 is C and D, 3 is E and F, 4 is C and G, 5 A and H, 6 B and I, and then scenario 7 is D, E, and J. Now, it does say if you add J, you have to add 2 more scenarios when you're building your own custom scenarios, as noted right here. So, really neat. A lot of replayability. And it kind of gives you the module breakdown of what they are. So, it's really handy if you want to do a custom scenario. There are game variants that you can make the game easier, more difficult, and then solo rules. I haven't played solo yet. And honestly, I probably won't because I play board games to play with a group. There are this card clarification, really handy, just because there are 2 versions of Vision, and this threw me off because I didn't know which one we were using at the time. But luckily, it actually tells you the card number in the corner. So it's really handy, and I do think the game is very well designed with the thought out. I know there's an expansion coming, or it's already out for the game. So when I get a chance to pick that up, I'm going to try that out. I do also like this little achievement thing. I mean, you're just keeping score against yourself, but it's kind of neat. And then we have it on the back. So, I think this is a really fun game. I think this is a game for a casual play group. If you get into something super competitive, it might fall apart real fast. It is a little expensive. Like, I'm pretty sure I paid like $80 for this, and I'm not exactly sure what I paid a lot of money for. I think this is about $50 worth of material, really, for a game, but I don't know. Is it worth 80 bucks? Well, that's up to you. Is it fun? Yeah, I think it's fun, and I think it's a good icebreaker, like I said, to introduce new players to the board gaming hobby. It's fairly quick to set up. It's fairly simple to explain the rules and have people go through it. And honestly, I think it's one of those games that it's a gateway game. So that's my review for, or first impression for Paleo.